listen, we're sitting here now at just after 5 past the hour. So I'm going to go ahead and do our introductions. Very welcome, everybody, this evening to this Lead Onion webinar with our guests, Neeraj Kapoor and Daniel Disney. And in case you don't know these two powerhouses, I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of who we've got here with us this evening. And Neeraj, whenever I jumped across, and Emma had very kindly provided me with both of your pen portraits, not that I needed them because your reputation does precede you. But when I jumped then over to your LinkedIn to see what you've been up to lately, I love the quote in your header: sales is not about closing deals, it's about helping your customers win. Which I absolutely loved. And you surely know what you're talking about. Neeraj is a LinkedIn top voice in sales 2021, an author of 2 Amazon best-selling books, Everybody Works in Sales, sales coach and a LinkedIn trainer, running sales teams for the Guardian newspaper and Marketing Week, one of my favorite publications, among others. Over 18,000 followers on LinkedIn, a daughter, and lives in Antrim after spending 25 years in London. So we're delighted to have you here with us this evening, Neeraj, and really look forward to hearing everything you've got to share with us about how you can help your customers win. And Daniel, no fluff. No guessing, just pure, tried and tested, proven techniques and strategies. Absolutely love it. I'm looking forward to hearing all about them tonight, and Michael will be looking forward to sharing them with all of our team, and I'm sure our guests can't wait to hear all about them. All of that, and you're LinkedIn's most influential sales expert, not only in 2019, 2020, but also in 2021. And I'm sure you'll pick it up again then now in 2022. CEO and founder of the Daily Sales, author of LinkedIn training books, included the Ultimate LinkedIn Sales Guide, Daily Sales, 750,000 followers and over 10 million monthly readers. Fantastic. Lives in London. Come on, Daniel. Over you come to Northern Ireland, you know you want to come here too. And known as the king of social selling. So without further ado, I am going to hand over to you two experts, Neeraj and Daniel.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Neeraj. You know, me and him have been friends for years now. I am super excited. I think we've got some great subjects and topics to dig into today, and hopefully we'll have a lot of fun as well.
That's fantastic. Now, me too. Well, the one thing I wanted to mention was, if you look at the last 2 years since lockdown, it has almost been 2 years, which is incredible. It all started in March 2020, and the world has changed so much. And we have embraced new ways of communicating. We have embraced new ways of working. And the world, thankfully, is starting to understand the importance of good mental health as well, which has affected us all in different ways. But one thing that hasn't changed that I really wish I could influence more is the quality of selling and how to sell better to customers. And that's why today's topic interested me the most, because how do we put our customers first? How do we understand customers better? And that's why I'm such a big fan of the whole, you know, the data-driven buyer intent, because it's about understanding how your customers read. You know, how they think, what are they reading, what are they subscribing to? Because once you understand your customers better, it's so much easier selling to them, always. What are your thoughts on that, Daniel?
No, I completely agree. We live in this age now where there is so much valuable data available to salespeople, to sales teams. To not use it it's silly. It's there, and there are tools, amazing tools and platforms out there that will help you take that data and essentially tell you how to provide the best possible service to your prospects and customers. And as Neeraj said, the state of selling isn't fantastic. Salespeople are behind, and we need to catch up with the tools and technology and let it help us be the best possible salespeople that we can and give that level of service that our customers deserve. So yeah, I'm super excited. This subject is so important, and to anyone who's working in sales or you know, running a sales team, the tools are out there. It's about finding them, learning how to use them, and integrating them into your business. Your customers will be grateful that you do.
100%. Because I know, and we speak about this a lot, Daniel, you know, we get inundated, I mean, inundated every day from companies, not just in the UK, but mainly in the USA as well, but also across Europe, saying, use our software, use our data, use this, use this. A lot of the time you ignore them just because of time and bandwidth. But a lot of the time, especially if it comes through a mutual friend, you'll meet them out of courtesy. And it's been a struggle to really find sort of buyer intent data that's really kind of made me go, you know what, this I think works. This is something that's going to help people. Because what do people care about in sales? They want to make more profit, of course, but they want to understand processes better. They want to understand customers better. They want to reduce the sales process because sales process is far too long. And during lockdown, it's got longer because it takes longer getting sign off and it takes longer making decisions. I found that as well in my business too. You know, one-to-one coaching is easy, but group training and working with bigger companies takes much longer to get sign off now. And there's still often several people involved in the decision-making process. There may only be one final decision maker, but there's several people involved in the decision-making process in terms of influencing it. And if you can understand your customers in terms of how they're thinking, how they're reading, and what they're doing, then Lead Onion can do that. And I'm certainly keen, Debbie, to kind of hear what Michael has to say, because I know this, he's more an expert in this than we are, of course, because he does this every single day too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there, Niraj, in terms of one of the most important aspects of sales is really drilling into the data side of things, and figuring out what your customer's thinking, what your customer wants. And in terms of what we've tried to do with Lead Onion is really to leverage the data that is out there in the market. There's an awful lot of data in the public domain. People are taking actions, whether they're on social media, commenting on threads, or whether they're attending events or reading articles. They're leaving little nuggets of information, which shows some level of intent. What we've tried to do is pull all of that together and put it into one platform where we can really tell a story in terms of where the customer is in that buyer's journey, and then allow the client to really leverage that data and start to have meaningful conversations. Selling for me is all about having conversations. And if you have something of value that you can use to open that initial conversation and then continue that conversation through the sales cycle, I think that's one of the most important aspects of selling.
I couldn't echo that enough. I think the biggest problem a lot of salespeople face at the minute is they're sending these messages out and they're not personalized. When I look through my inbox, when I see messages sent to me from other CEOs and decision makers, the majority, if not all, and I did a video about this today, ironically, the majority, if not all of the message is about the salesperson. Yeah. My name is X, I sell this is what we do, blah, 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 blah. And it's all about them. And that doesn't work. The spray and pray, the spam messaging, it just isn't an effective strategy. And as you say, the information is there, and tools like Lead Onion, they make it super easy for you to access. And if you can use that information to then send better messages, personalized messages that are less about you and more about them, you're going to get more responses. You're going to have more conversations, which will create more opportunities. And it sounds really simple, but so many sales teams struggle to take that leap from, I guess, essentially what was a very older style of selling to what is, as Niraj said, the current requirement for modern digital selling.
Yeah,
absolutely. I did a count today before we started. So 32 LinkedIn messages and 50 emails. That's what I've received today from people I don't know. Of the 50 emails I've received, I've ignored every single one of them because they were all impersonal. Some of them didn't even have my name on it. Some of them had, "Dear, everybody works in sales." I would never address you, Debbie. If I called you and say, "Hi, Simplify, hi, Lead Onion, how are you?" No, I would use your name. Yeah. But the second thing is, I did respond to one person, and that was only because he had actually made the effort to look at my LinkedIn profile. Yeah. And he says, "I see you play drums in a rock band. I play guitar in a rock band." Now, that's it. That's all it took, was him to look at my about section, which is very professional. But the very end of an about section on LinkedIn, you should always have a few lines about yourself that have nothing to do with work, that humanize you and tell people something about you. And for me, I say every year I grow a ridiculous mustache to raise money for November, and I play drums in a rock band. And he picked up on that, and he asked for a 1-hour meeting. And I said to him, "Look, I'm far too busy for a 1-hour meeting. But here's the thing. You made the effort, and I respect that. Please send me an agenda, and if it's of interest, it was of interest, that's it. I will have a 20-minute meeting with you. And he did that. He sent the agenda within half an hour and arranged a meeting. That is a great way to get somebody's attention because, again, you've made the effort. You've got to know the person behind the business. And I can't stress that enough. And there's certain things I know from teaching as well. Sometimes you teach something to somebody once and they get it. And certain things you have to say to somebody 20, 30, 40, 50 times before they get it. And this is one of these things you got to say 20, 30, 40, 50 times. Please put your clients first. Please understand your clients. You'll be amazed at how much you can achieve when you do this.
And I think that, Daniel, that sort of brings me back to like what we were saying whenever we did your introduction. And one of the things that I missed off there, because there were so many things for both of you, you know, like in your pen profiles, but you had said about no theory. And I think that sometimes people can get so caught up maybe in the sales process or this is how to do things and forget that at the end of the day, people are buying people, you know, regardless of what it is that you're selling, the product or the service or whatever. And that example that you had given, Niraj, of, you know, taking the time to read your profile and to pick out something that the two of you had in common, you know, that you were both in a band, one playing guitar and the other one playing drums or whatever. And that's what piqued your interest. So I'd be interested to hear, you know, like more, Daniel, then about the you know, the no fluff and the no guessing and some of your tried and tested methods that you would use.
Yeah, no, Debbie, I've been trying and will continue to try different message styles, you know, to make sure I'm sort of trying to figure out what works best right now, because it changes. What worked last year, what worked obviously pre-COVID, what worked before that, you know, the platform, the world, selling is changing rapidly. And so it's important to test. And I encourage people I teach, I encourage everyone watching this webinar, you know, we'll give you some insights, some ideas. Go and test it, try different things. But as Niraj said, more than anything, definitely don't get the little details wrong. And I seem to be stuck in a cadence at the minute where someone keeps sending me a message and calling me Becky. I don't know why. I don't know what they can do to change that. Knock my book off then. But I'm Becky. And every so often I get an email, hi, Becky. And it does make me chuckle. You know, those little details can have a huge impact. Am I going to buy from that person? Probably not. But it does make an impact. And as Niraj said, if someone can pick up something in your profile, maybe something you post or share on LinkedIn or another social channel, you know, all those things matter. So there are loads of templates that we all use, but they're skeletal, they're structures, and what makes it valuable, what makes it work, and anyone can do this, there is no massive science to this. Make the message about them. Find something about them you can bring into the conversation. Maybe it's something you read in their profile. Maybe it's something they shared on LinkedIn. Maybe they were in a webinar. Maybe they were on a podcast. There is a wealth of content out there, and tools like Lead Onion can help you find lots of great conversation starting opportunities, but use that information. Make your message about them. If anything, I think messaging has become easier and more simple. It's not about these crazy, well-crafted sales messages that used to exist, crazy sales emails. It's all about making it more about them. The more you can do that, the more success you'll have.
Brilliant. Michael, can I ask you a question? And sorry if I'm going off script here, guys, or anything. I mean, Daniel had said just now about he's stuck in a cadence and his name is Becky. I wonder who Becky is. You know, and some of the tools then, you know, that are available with Lead Onion that would prevent that from happening, because in Lead Onion you've got cadences and you've also got things like contact search. How would Lead Onion help that person who is sending emails to Daniel and calling him Becky to make sure that they had the contact information right whenever they were doing their outreach?
Yeah, well, I think with Lead Onion, you know, one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the accuracy of the underlying database that we have. And I think when it comes to any engagement campaign, whether it's a sales one, whether it's a marketing one, having accurate data is fundamental. So I think one of the things that we would do would be to provide LinkedIn profiles along with all of the data that we provide. So there's a really quick way then to verify that the person's details that you're using with for an email marketing campaign is actually accurate. You can look at their LinkedIn. Is this the right person? Have you got their first name right? Is it Daniel? Is it Becky? So yeah, there's really good data within the Lead Onion platform, and that all integrates then through into the likes of your sales cadences, so you can be sure that it is all tied together.
Okay, brilliant, excellent. Sorry, back over to you, Daniel and Niraj.
I can already see that people watching this are going to start messaging me, calling me Becky now. Looking forward to getting all of those messages.
Yeah.
But it's great to see that Lead Onion is solving problems like that, because it's so important. You make a first impression, you only get one chance to do that, and if calling them the wrong name is the first impression you give, not going off to a great start. I think what's really important, especially when we're thinking about using this data, is using it in those sort of key 3 areas. So using it to identify the right people, using it to prioritize. So using those insights to say, okay, this type of person historically has been a quick win or a bigger win, or the data is showing us that maybe they have more intent to buy. So prioritizing the right people, so you're not focusing on someone who's going to take 12, 18, 24 months to buy when you've got people that could be converted much quicker. And then using that information to say, okay, now let's go and connect, now let's go and communicate, now let's go and start that conversation. That is such an important journey to go through, and I can't say this enough. The data is there. It is there. It is right there in front of you. Go and use it. If you can use it to help make you sell better, instead of just going out there. I mean, I wish these tools were there. And Niraj, I'm sure you're the same. I wish we had tools like this back where we were selling sort of 10, 15, 20 years ago, literally given the worst data. I mean, 5, 10, 15-year-old data, stacks of numbers and email addresses, and the amount of people that, the horrible stories that would come from it. I'm jealous of everyone working in sales right now.
That's such a good point, actually. When I started off, we didn't even have a computer. That's how old I am. So we had A5 postcards with handwritten, we had the worst data you had. And when that ran out, you had this big, thick book called the Yellow Pages, which is like I guess a book version of Wikipedia, but it was incredible, and it was updated once a year. So it was like, it wasn't even updated. You need to have data that's updated as well. And that reminds me a lot about, when it comes to a data-driven sales plan. We've mentioned some of these keywords already, like identify, prioritize, and connect. You mentioned identify and prioritize. So I want to talk about connecting, making things personal. So when you're doing business, not just on LinkedIn, but business in general, if you imagine the person you're trying to sell to, they are bombarded all day long with messages, not just email, not just LinkedIn, but WhatsApp. Now I've got 2 different Slack channels I'm on 4 different WhatsApp groups, and I actually cut out most of the noise, but still I'm in these different groups as well. Then, of course, I have to deal with social media messages. So all day long, your customer or your potential customer is inundated. And what you need to be thinking of is, how are you going to stand out? Not just in business, but on LinkedIn. I always say it's not about being the best. Yes, Daniel is one of the best, but he stands out because of his brand, because of his hairstyle, because of his alias Becky. There's all these different, different kinds of ways of doing that, because he's written 2 best-selling books. It's how do you stand out in a really busy world? And that's why I like what Lead Onion has to offer, because it can identify and it can prioritize, and it helps you understand your customer. So please, anybody watching this, think about how are you going to stand out. And looking at the chat section here, Sean, great to see you. And Adam, I'm a huge fan of Will and Grace, so thank you so much. Great to see you both.
Great. Daniel, I have a question for you. So research tells us that 63% of people requesting information on your company today won't make a purchase for 3 months. And 20% probably won't even then actually buy from you for 12 months. Now, you were talking about cadences before, and we'll not call you Becky again, but we're talking about cadences before, and how you can then automate how your leads are contacted, what your message contains, and what methods are used to deliver your message based on that real-time intent data. In your experience, what sort of messages and in which channels work best to convert hot leads at scale? So we've talked about that first outreach and the connection, but what about the channels and the messages that work best to convert leads?
It's a really good question, and it is going to differ for different people. It will depend on who you're selling to, what industries, etc., as to what platforms and channels work best. From my experience, very much B2B, sort of UK, Europe, US. My experience, it tends to be email and LinkedIn, the stronger channels. There are definitely opportunities on every single channel out there, but certainly for seeing quicker and larger results, LinkedIn and email all the way. In terms of the type of messaging that you're sending out, personalization is key. So you want to try and find ways to make it as personal as possible. The other thing that is super important is to make sure you're very clear in what you believe you can do for them. Make sure they are the hero in the journey. What are you going to help them achieve? What can you do, say, or show to tell them this is what I think I can do for you, whether it's numbers, whether it's examples. If you can make it as crystal clear as possible and super simple, show them what you can do for them. Think about busy decision makers, C-level, VPs, directors. These people are busy, very, very busy. And as we've all kind of agreed on, they are inundated with communication from salespeople from all directions. As Niraj said, you want to stand out. And one of the best ways you can do that is just keep your messaging simple. Stop making it repetitive. Stop making it generic. Make it personal and get to the point. Tell them what you can do for them.
Absolutely. I mean, in marketing, and whenever I'm teaching marketing, so like yourselves, deliver workshops and write courses and things as well. And we always start with a persona. You start with that individual. Who are they? What are their pain points? What are the challenges that they have? What are the things that they're trying to achieve? And then speak to them on that level in terms of how you're going to help them to overcome those challenges and to achieve their goals. And then research varies between business to business and business to consumer whenever it comes to that outreach. In B2C, they'll say it takes 6 to 8 touches before, of someone seeing your messages before they might buy something from you. And obviously in B2C, depending on the value of the purchase, it'd be very different. An expensive car versus a new pair of shoes might take more touches for the car. And then it varies. And whenever we go over to B2B, it can be 6 to 18 or maybe even more touches. Do you have any sort of advice, either the two of you, in terms of how many steps there should be in a sales cadence? How many touches that you need, or even in your own sales cadences, how many you would typically have?
I feel that's a bit of how long is a piece of string. It is going to vary very differently for different companies. I mean, I'm working with so many different places at the minute, and it is different for all of them. I think, as we kind of said earlier, test different styles, test different lengths of cadences. You'll find the one that fits and works best. But yeah, it is very hard to say which one works. What I will mention, actually, we were sort of talking about some of the data. I read a statistic yesterday from Gartner, and it was talking about deal sizes sort of up to $1 million. You can have anywhere up to 7 decision makers involved. But when you get past, $1 million in value, you can have anywhere up to 13 direct decision makers, plus an additional 10 indirect decision makers. There are so many people you need to be influencing. So when we think about cadences and the amount of steps, we also want to think about the amount of people that are involved in that cadence that we are connecting to and reaching out to. It's not just one person. There may be one direct decision maker you might deal with primarily, but there are a lot of other people that are going to be part of that process, and having them as part of your cadence, whether it's through social media, whether it's through email, whatever channels, the more people you can impact and influence in a positive way, the more chances you're going to have of winning opportunities.
Of success. And that's going to take a heck of a lot of time, finding those decision makers and then doing that outreach. So Michael, how does Lead Onion then help you know, people like Daniel, people like the, you know, that have joined us here this evening, how does Lead Onion help to make their lives easier then in terms of finding out who on earth those, you know, as Daniel said, up to $1 million, there might be 7 decision makers. And then whenever you get to a business with turnover higher than that, there could be 13 or even 23 decision makers. How does Lead Onion help its users to identify decision makers within the organizations they want to target?
Yeah, well, the first thing that we really do, Debbie, is to identify the company first that clients want to go after. So I think the guys touched on a number of key points there earlier on about identify, prioritize, and connect. I've got a graphic here. If you don't mind, I'm just going to pull it up on the screen, if that's okay. Can everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yep. So this is effectively what we set out to build with the Lead Onion platform. On the left-hand side of the graphic here, we've got 27 different intent sources. So this is really where we're pulling in company level information. So people within companies are popping up in various different channels. They're showing intent maybe on social media, they're maybe on our website on first party intent, or they're leaving reviews on G2 or some of the other big review sites. We use that information to identify the right company to go after. Once the data comes into Lead Onion, we then prioritize the data. So we're able to say, right, these companies are actually showing intent in 3 different places. So they've left a review on G2, they've been on our website, and they're consuming a lot of content around our industry. Those are the companies we're going to go after, as opposed to maybe a company who's just been on your website or has just been on G2. Once we've done that piece and we've narrowed it down to the right companies, then we have a process where we reveal those decision makers. So whenever Daniel's talking about depending on the deal size, we can cover that. So if it's a smaller company and you only need to reveal the CEO, we provide you with the range of prospects that you can basically reveal their contact details for. If it's a bigger deal, you need 5, 6, 7 different people. You'll have access to all of that contact information. You can reveal all of those people, put them all onto the same cadence or different cadences depending on what their role is. So you're really getting in front of the right people at the right time. And then the next piece of the Lead Onion process is to automate that. So automatically putting them on the cadences, or take them out of Lead Onion, put them into HubSpot, into Salesforce, or into another system where you're running engagement campaigns. But I think one of the most exciting things for me about how Lead Onion is helping its clients is once you're successful in that process, it's looking at where did the success come from? Which types of company have you sold to? What was the intent that those companies shown in the initial stages, in the middle stages, and then starting to learn from that and starting to feed that back through the system to say, right, well, here's another company that's showing the same intent, is in the same industry, has the same revenue range. These are the companies that you should go after next. So that's kind of what we've set out to build, and we're I'd say 95% of the way there now with that whole process.
Very
Brilliant.
clever.
That's so
Great.
easy to understand as well. One thing that hasn't been brought up, Debbie, wouldn't mind me adding, is the importance of sales language. Would it be okay if I mention that for a second?
Oh, yes, please.
When you look at that image you had there, Michael, which was brilliant, on the right-hand side, you were talking about the engagement part. One difficulty I see in sales is that people often sound the same to everybody they speak to. Now, when you speak to someone who's a CEO, think about what your buyer cares about. They care about profit and loss. They care about market share. They care about their staff, and they care about vision. If you end up speaking to a financial director, they only care about ideally cutting costs, because a lot of financial directors get bonuses when they cut costs or making money. That's it. They don't care about vision or market share or staffing. They have a certain skill set. When you speak to marketing people, their needs are very different to CEOs. So always make sure you're using the right language for the person you speak to. I'm shocked number of people who sell to me and go, "You're right, mate." I'm like, come on, dude, I'm a business owner. Don't call me mate. Think about the people you're speaking to and make sure you adapt your language accordingly. And that's very easy to do in the automation process. The second thing I wanted to mention was when you talked about decision makers and how many are involved. If you say to somebody, look, are you a decision maker? A lot of people often say yes, and then speak to people internally, and you're kind of lost there. In order to have a more successful sales process, what I always recommend saying to people is, from my experience, there's often several people involved. in the decision-making process. Who else do we have to influence? That's a very gentle way of asking who else is involved. Because if you say, are you a decision maker? People automatically say yes to protect their colleagues from you calling them. But if you say things like, again, it's the same thing done in a completely different way. From my experience, there's often several people involved in the decision-making process. Who else do we have to influence? You'll find people's barriers often come down a wee bit, and they'll often be more open to sharing. It doesn't work all the time, but it's the most successful one I've kind of found so far, if you know what I mean.
You make them feel like they're working with you, and that's the way it should be. You know, they feel like, okay, yes, let's work on this together. There's a bit of camaraderie, there's a team element to it. So I mean, that's brilliant, Niraj. The way you phrase that is, it's fantastic. I can see how it's going to help you understand who other people might be, but it brings them closer to you, which is even better.
Brilliant. And I love that as a marketer. I love that as well, because then I'm thinking that for those people, that some of the questions that I perhaps would have would be, what sort of information do you need from us to help you, you know, like to communicate the message to like those people that you want to influence? What is it that your CFO would want to know, so that then, you know, that you can share content with them that helps them to convince those other people, if they're really wanting your product or service and they need you to help them to get it over the line. So yeah,
that's a brilliant question to ask, Debbie. I often ask a similar question. I often ask, is that person I'm going to be trying to do business with, are they a visual thinker or a verbal thinker? So I have clients who are solicitors. I have clients who are big accountancy firms. They want stuff written in the most incredible detail you could possibly imagine. Yet when I do business with people like IT companies or graphic design, architects, they're visual people and they think visually. They do not want to have loads of text. They want to have visuals, like the visual Michael shared earlier. That is perfect if you're selling to a visual person.
Yeah.
But not necessarily as good as you're selling to a law firm. So make sure, I always ask, are they visual or verbal? How do they like to receive information? That's a really good question to ask, Debbie.
Yeah, brilliant. Right, okay, we've got another question here. If I'm trying to sell a vision for a way that current cost processes could be improved, would I sell that vision to a CEO first, since they are more of a visionary leader? And
That's from Sean. That's a really good
Sean.
question.
Sean, I was trying to see who that's from. Sorry, yeah, it's from Sean. Great question.
I'll just kick off a quick thought on that. Obviously, yes, your CEO or the CEO is likely to be the visionary leader, but that's also probably one of the most difficult people to communicate with and get in front of. So yes, absolutely, doesn't mean you shouldn't attempt it. But what I would also suggest is looking at other people within the business. As Niraj mentioned, you know, finance may not be your best route in, but you will find lots of other people that buy into the vision throughout the business from top to bottom. And sometimes working your way through the bottom and working your way up can be just as effective as going straight in for the CEO. But if you're trying to sell a vision as part of the product or service or solution you sell, you want to find people that are very invested in the company, maybe people that have been there for a long time, you know, people that have big roles, those sort of people that are going to be looking at the long-term process. So yeah, CEO, definitely a route to go down, but also appreciate you're going to probably have a relatively low chance of success. So it's worth spreading out and looking at other people as well, which is, you know, we've highlighted platforms like Lead Onion can give you the opportunity to see all those different doors. This is a whole row of doors. Just start working through each one.
Brilliant. Excellent. Thank you so much, Sean. So I have another question. We'd had some questions sent in advance as well. So I have another question. This time it's for you, Niraj. As a top LinkedIn voice in sales for 2021, we're going to ask you a LinkedIn question, okay? It would be remiss not to. Our sales team are getting excellent results from LinkedIn prospecting at the minute. What is your top tip? Now, I know you said about the, you know, keeping it personal whenever you're doing those LinkedIn connections and do your background research, but would that be your top tip, or do you have any other top tips for LinkedIn prospecting?
In addition to what I've said, client first always, really taking the time to understand the person you're selling to. That is absolutely key. And in terms of actual prospecting itself, the two most effective forms of prospecting on LinkedIn Everybody should have
Ready.
LinkedIn on their mobile phone. The mobile app is actually incredibly easy to use. It's very user friendly. And if you go to somebody's profile and type in message, instead of typing in message, there's a blue button. It's a microphone button, and you hold it down and you have 60 seconds to leave a voicemail. Now, voicemails in general are not that effective. You don't always get your voicemails returned. However, LinkedIn voicemail is 5 times more effective than normal voicemail. It just works very well because it's like a trusted medium for people. And also, it's ideal for introverts. So a lot of my customers, for example, are either quite shy or they're introvert. They don't like the spotlight. They know they have to sell. And the LinkedIn voice note is perfect because they can get their tone and their intelligence across, because introverts are quite different to extroverts, and they can get their tone and their intelligence and their thoughts across better, and their energy, of course, as well, on a LinkedIn voice note than a general message. And if you're like me and you're an extrovert, LinkedIn video is amazing. Again, I shoot it on my phone like this, and I will say, I often use this more for if I can't get hold of a client, because we all are in different stages of the sales process. And sometimes you just can't get hold of your client for a whole variety of reasons. And video is fantastic for doing this, because what I'll say is, just a reminder, here are the challenges you're having, here are the solutions we provide. I just wanted to remind you, has anything changed since we last spoke? So I know how fast things are changing right now. Here's my number, here's my email, I'd love to hear from you, send. And that takes, again, about 30 to 40 seconds. But your energy, your enthusiasm, your passion, everything comes across so much better on video. And if your clients are international, so I have a lot of clients in the Middle East and India and Australia, I have subtitles because my Irish accent's quite strong. If my clients are in Canada or America, they don't need it. But if your clients are in a country where English is often the second language, or your accent is just very strong, I always have subtitles in that video as well. And I use subtitle, but there's a lot of different options out there, but get it subtitled as well. But video, voice notes are the most effective ways of prospecting on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Like, seriously, whenever I used to go to face-to-face events and I'd be standing up there presenting or attending them, but if I was standing up presenting, I always used to get everybody to take out their phone, go to LinkedIn, turn on their Bluetooth, etc., and go find other people in the room and like do the connections. I did not know about the voice message and Messenger, and I can see there's a lot of happy people in the chat here. True, that's very interesting. Damn, that's fire. So lots of very happy people there. That's brilliant. Thank you very much. If you seen me looking down, guys, that was me going, oh, where's that? I need to do that. So look out, there'll be lots of people getting voice messages from me from now on, and LinkedIn. That's really fantastic. And of course, in many parts of the world, in fact, globally, like WhatsApp now, in terms of, like for communications, is one of the preferred methods for communications. And in certain parts of the world, particularly out in China, like like the voice messaging and leave the notes, not actually doing a phone call and talking to each other, but just sending voice messages, works incredibly well. So now that we know we can do it on LinkedIn as well, we're all going to be flat to the mat doing that. Michael, I have a question for you then. Again, another statistic. It said that inaccurate data wastes 27.3% of sales reps' time. My gosh, which equates to 446 hours a year. Thank you very much, Emma, for providing the research on that. Apart from time wasting, how else does bad data impact sales and marketing?
Well, I think as we've kind of talked about throughout this webinar, data really is at the heart of every business and every business decision, and now becoming at the heart of every engagement, really. So having accurate data, as we've mentioned before, is really the key. I think Daniel gave a good example in terms of being called Becky. Obviously, he's not going to respond to that message. So having inaccurate data or not fresh data is a big challenge for every company. The other thing about data is it inherently decays over time. So if you have a database, it instantly becomes out of date as soon as you've done anything with it. So it's really important to be able to keep your data fresh and up to date, so that then you can, I suppose, use your resources wisely in terms of reaching out to people who are actually in the positions that you think they're in, or at the companies that you think they're in. The other thing about data as well is companies are inherently having larger and larger tech stacks at the minute. So they're bringing data together from multiple different sources. That brings challenges in terms of data being siloed. If you don't have data in one centralized platform, it's really, really difficult to understand everything that you can about a prospect. So from a sales point of view, you want to know everything that you can about that prospect before you have a conversation with them. And if you've got data in 5 or 6 different systems and those systems don't speak to each other, I think that can be a really big challenge for companies in terms of knowing where their customers are at, whether they are at the right stage of the buyer cycle. So I think that's really, really important as well.
So, and Michael, I mean, we're getting lots of agreement here that data is at the heart of every business decision, and there's other sorts of data that through all of the you know, the intent tools, etc., that's available then in Lead Onion. So could you give us an example of some of the things that you can see, like in the live feed, for want of a better word, that real-time data, that real-time information that's displayed? What sort of things is it that, as a user of Lead Onion, if I was a user, what I would see that, you know, that would sort of trigger me to go, right, I need to get in contact with that company.
Yeah.
They're going to be in the market for my product.
Yeah, I'll just show my screen very quickly. I won't spend too much time on it. But if you can see this is effectively the intent area of the Lead Onion platform. And what we're showing here on this page is companies who are showing intent. So this first one here, they're attending a conference, the Cloud Expo, which is a conference that we as a company are tracking, and we're interested in knowing which attendees and which companies are going to that event. So again, going back to what we said earlier, that's a conversation starter. We can now reach out to somebody within that company. We can say, we see you're attending this conference, and start to have a conversation. So that's kind of one form of intent. The really valuable part of the Lead Onion system is within this surge area. I talked about it earlier about being able to prioritize accounts. Here we can see companies who are hiring for a specific role and they are engaging with a topic that we're tracking. And you can start to get really, really granular in terms of going after those companies who are showing the most intent. But then the valuable information then, whenever we view the prospects that are available, we can see that range of decision makers within the system. We can reveal their contact details, pick up the phone, have a conversation, or add them to a cadence quite quickly.
Fantastic. Could you just scroll back up there a wee second, Michael? What did that show? There was 36, 20. I can't, which one were you on? I can't look at the amount of contact. Oh, that one, it was the 29. 29. So yeah. Is that there's 29 contacts available that match the profile of, you know, job title or whatever within that organization?
Yeah. So you can set up your ideal customer profile, and then we'll pull back the people from the company who meet those parameters.
Okay.
So again, you're really just streamlining a lot of the manual processes that companies are going through at the minute, whether they're picking up on signals online and then going to LinkedIn and finding out who the decision makers are. We can just kind of automate a lot of that processing and allow you to do it at scale.
Brilliant.
Phenomenal tool, and not only easy to use, but that is packed with information, up to date. I mean, blows my mind. I think it's phenomenal. I think you've built something very incredible there, and yeah, easy to use, and yeah, super beneficial. As we've said throughout this whole session, use this information. This information is right here. If you can access it and use it, you'll be ahead of the curve of so many sales teams out there. You will have such an advantage, and if you could integrate that into an effective messaging and cadence strategy, you'll be laughing.
Absolutely, and it's user friendly, and that's key, because every day salespeople are struggling with complex systems, and one of the biggest complaints is how the complex systems hold them back, because they're clunky, because they're time consuming, because there's so many things they have to keep using. And if you can create something which you've done that's user friendly, that just makes the whole process, and again, the whole experience, so much easier.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we've tried to do as part of this is to build it in a way that has made our lives easier. You know, we're in the software space. We're in the business of selling our own product. So everything that we've designed and built here has been built so that it's made our life easier and allowed us to operate a lot smoother as well.
Excellent. So it'd be fair to say that Lead Onion is no fluff and no guesswork.
I agree.
Well, we're coming up to, we've got about 8 minutes left. Let's have a look and see any more questions, guys, in the chat. I think we've taken all the questions from the chat there. And I don't know, Michael, if I've already addressed this and asked you, and I suppose I could open this up to everyone as well, but how does Lead Onion eliminate bad data?
Yeah, I think we kind of covered that a few minutes ago, Debbie, in terms of having that fresh data coming in. I think when I showed the feed there, you're seeing the data's real time. So 3 minutes ago, this company has announced their funding round. So that's real live data, real live intent that you can action quickly. And then the fact that we're providing the data live in terms of the prospects, we're able to check the accuracy of that before we provide it to you. So yeah, we're able to overcome a lot of those challenges that we've talked about before. So
it's great, it's nice and fresh, which is really important, which allows you to reach out in real time and not 2-3 days later, or even, you know, like weeks after your competitors have already reached out and made contact and beaten you
yeah,
to the post.
I think that's an important point. It's typically the first company to reach out is the one that wins the business, if they're of a good enough standards in comparison to their competitors. So it's really about getting yourself in the door first, getting that competitive edge, and having live intent data and live feeds of data coming through allows you to do that.
I think time's a really good point just to touch upon. Time is our most valuable asset for a salesperson, for a sales team. You know, we all have the same amount of time. And when you look at all the tools we're using, all the complexities that we face on a day-to-day basis, using tools like this that make it super easy, it's saving you time. That information is there in one central place. Otherwise, you know, without that, you might have your data list over here. You're then trying to search all those different areas. Or I'm looking at LinkedIn, I'm on their website, you know, that takes a lot of time. And to have it all accessible within one central place, I mean, it would vary for different people, but the amount of time you're saving gives you more time to provide better service to your prospects and customers, to prospect to even more potential customers. You know, time is a valuable asset. And again, if you're not using technology and tools to help be as efficient and effective as possible, you are running behind the salespeople and sales teams that are embracing that, who are selling the way you should be selling in 2022 and beyond. So yeah, tools like this, just phenomenal. And time is such an important part. Don't waste your time doing things that technology can help you do quicker or do for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. We have another question then in the chat for Niraj. Niraj, how many posts / blogs / communications did you execute in 2021? Ooh, good question. To achieve the voice of LinkedIn.
It's a bit more complicated than that, but what I did is I do 5 posts a week. And one thing I always recommend people to do in any industry they work in is surround yourself with smart people and ask them good questions. So I surround myself with people like Daniel, who I ask loads of advice to. I have people online in America and the UK who I talk to a lot and ask advice from. One of the things I learned early last year was the importance of posting at the weekends. I'd never in a million years thought of posting a Sunday. Who does that? But apparently Saturdays and Sundays are wonderful, especially for personal posts. And it wasn't just about doing good business content, which of course is absolutely vital. The posts I do are very simple and, more importantly, actionable. And that's key. Simple and actionable. But it was actually the posts I did about vulnerability and the difficulty of rebuilding my life, because in 2019 I went through a very painful divorce after 21 years. And financially I lost so much. I lost the people who I thought were my friends. They took my ex-wife's side because she's more successful, more beautiful, more glamorous. Who wouldn't, you know? So I went through this whole turmoil in my life, and I found it very difficult to cope. Men just struggle to cope in certain traumatic situations. So I started writing about it on a personal level on LinkedIn, only once a month, because it was quite difficult to do that. But all of a sudden, I wasn't just getting a few thousand views and 20 or 30 comments and posts. I had 5 posts go viral last year, which is almost unheard of. You know, we got 100,000, which I believe, Daniel, is the first stage of viral, 250,000, which is the second stage, and 500,000 views which is like that's like Oprah Winfrey, Bill Gates, Richard Branson kind of thing. And 2 of my posts got over 500,000, which is just insane. Talking about loneliness, talking about vulnerability, talking about how awful online dating is, especially at my age. And because I wrote about it with real love, not with anger, but with love and frustration, people just connect with me on such a different level. And that was a massive contribution towards that.
Yeah. And can I ask you a question about that, Niraj? And you've really opened yourself up there and showing your vulnerability on LinkedIn. And some people might say that, you know, all the social channels, I talk about them like being like parties, almost like, you know, like Facebook is like a family reunion sort of thing, all ages, all, you know, and keep it personal. And that LinkedIn is very much, you know, like B2B and keep it business. So how, I guess it kind of comes back to what you were talking about at the start about, you know, personal and finding out more about people. Did you find that approach has helped on a business level?
Oh, without a
as
doubt,
well then?
100%. Before March 2020, I didn't talk that much about my personal life because, like many people, I think, you know, LinkedIn is a business platform. Let's keep it business. But what lockdown has allowed us to do is show our vulnerability. And I think more people now are understanding vulnerability is a superpower. More people now are understanding the importance, and it is very important to talk about mental health challenges, because for a lot of people in lockdown, working at home has taken its challenge. You know, my daughter's generation, I've tremendous empathy for, because most of them have no idea what it's like to be in an office. They have no idea the importance of being in the water cooler moments. They have no idea what it's like to be mentored by somebody. No, they're missing out on so much by not being there. And my daughter has just started her first ever job in London, and she had the choice to work remotely. And I said, no, I want you in the office. If after a year you don't want to do it, it's fine, but I want you in that office. Me and my ex-wife were paying a fortune for her to travel to London every single day, but she's loving it because she has a water cooler moments. She can talk to people smarter than her for advice. She's getting mentored by really smart women. She's loving it. And that's the experience people should be having. So those personal posts really do matter now more than ever. And a lot of people say, look, especially women say this more than ever, I don't want to talk about my kids. My personal life is my personal life. And I totally respect that. And my answer to that is, you don't have to go deep and dark and talk about your scars. Talk about things you've had to overcome in life. Because when you talk about challenges you've had and how you've overcome those challenges, people see you more than your job title. They connect with you on such a deep level. And so many people have connected with me on my personal posts going, you know what? I've been following your content for several months, but that post you did, oh, I loved it. Can we have a chat next week about sales training? And we have a chat, and I do a proposal, and I follow up on the proposal, and then I'm in the business. There's still a process to go through, of course, like there isn't all sales, but the personal posts have helped me get there quicker. Much, and that's really wonderful. Like I said at the beginning, anything like Lead Onion, which can help reduce the sales process, or quicken the sales process, I should say, it's always something I encourage people to.
Yeah, and it frees up your time, as you said as well, Daniel. It frees up your time to do more of the important stuff, like actually connecting with people, you know, talking to them, having those meaningful conversations, and let Lead Onion do the heavy lifting, using its really clever AI to go out and find out who those contacts are that you do want to have those meaningful conversations with. And I loved I've written that down, that quote, surround yourself with smart people and ask good questions, which is what we're doing here tonight. I think we're surrounded by good, you know, smart people and asking good questions. So any final comments as we wrap up? We're almost at the hour here, folks. Any final comments, Daniel?
I mean, this has been a great webinar. I think it's been really good to delve into data, intent, how you use that information, how you personalize. And just to echo, I mean, Niraj has been a phenomenal sort of star for coming onto LinkedIn and showing the power of a personal brand, showing the power of breaking down that stereotype of a salesperson that's only out there trying to sell something, and going out there and saying, I'm a human being too. You're a human being. I'm a human being. Let's talk. Let's build real relationships, because not only does that help generate more sales, but it creates longer lasting relationships that can bring business, mutually beneficial business for many years to come. And, you know, the data is there, the platforms are there, LinkedIn is there, all these things are there. And for everyone, you know, watching this live or on catch up, it's up to you now. Take what we've talked about today and start using it. Start showing up on LinkedIn and sharing content. Start looking at tools like Lead Onion so you can gain access to that data and start using it the right way, ultimately to do what all good salespeople want to do, and that is deliver the best possible service to our prospects and customers.
Fantastic. And Michael, I know that you're going to be circulating a recording of tonight's session and offering people the opportunity to then come over and try Lead Onion for themselves to see it in action and get a trial. But before that lands in their inbox and that invitation goes over to them, have you got anything else you'd like to share with us here tonight?
I think I just want to say thank you to Daniel and Neeraj. I mean, I've really enjoyed the webinar tonight. I think I've learned quite a bit that I didn't know about LinkedIn selling, and I think it's been really valuable having you two guys on board. And thank you for your time. And yeah, as Debbie mentioned, we will send some emails out afterwards, and people will have an opportunity to come and have a look at us if they want to try the tools out. Brilliant.
Some emails and maybe some voice notes on LinkedIn.
Voice notes on LinkedIn. That's the winner of the day.
Fantastic. Well, listen, I'm in marketing now, but I used to work in export sales. I've done the yellow pages. Neeraj, I hear you, and trying to get past the gatekeepers and everything. And I can honestly say that Lead Onion is definitely the tool that I wish I had in the day whenever I was heading up export sales in the FMCG industry. So yeah, it's really cool, and I love how you can not just find the companies who are displaying intent, but the individuals at those companies, and then the topics that they're actually talking about. So thank you all very much for joining us here this evening. Thank you, Emma Kennedy, for inviting us along tonight. 3 fantastic speakers. Thank you so much, and we hope that you'll join us again in our future webinars. So if that's it for this evening, or this morning, depending on or the daytime, depending on where you're dialing in from. I hope that you have lots of useful tips that you can take away and implement in your sales processes from here on in. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
All
everyone.
right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.